I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime. I have a couple of kids who are Democrats, are big Bernie Sanders fans. And when I told them that this was going to happen, they had tears in their eyes because they thought this is never going to happen in our lifetime. And we finally have a president who's willing to stand up for the American people. There's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on the side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump.
Trump has signed an executive order for pharmaceutical companies to lower the cost of prescription drugs. It's not being reported in the news very much, of course, and a lot of people haven't heard about it. When CNN did report on this, they took the angle of he's not really going to be able to do this. He tried to do this in his first term and it got shot down by the Supreme Court. But I want to go through it with you guys because he's learned a lot from his first term and, of course, he's got a strategy.
He singled out weight loss drugs as part of his inspiration.
A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London. And I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on?
Quite a story there.
What is he like? He's very funny. Look, this is huge. This is massive if he can pull this off. Obviously, the price that America is paying for prescription drugs is just so exorbitant. People are questioning this. Is this really possible to get drug companies to do this with an executive order? And fair enough, it's a good question. Let's just have a look here at why it didn't work the first time.
Well, you're asking the wrong guy. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think he's got the legal authority. And the last time he tried this during his first administration, the courts threw it out because he hadn't gone through the right process. And I doubt that even if he went through a process, that he would have the legal authority to require drug companies to reach the same price or equivalent price as is paid in other countries like Canada or Britain or Germany or France.
Of course, the legacy media is going to downplay this, but the fact that there's a president actually fighting for this, genuinely trying for this, is incredible. It is absolutely amazing.
It's an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator in Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country.
But the reason that this didn't work out in Trump's first term was because of something called the Administrative Procedure Act. And agencies like the HHS have to follow a specific procedure. So that procedure apparently is that they have to publish a proposed rule, give at least 30 days for public comment, and then respond to those comments before finalizing the rule. And in Trump's first term, he didn't do that. So when it reached the Supreme Court, they just shut it down. This time, they're following the procedure. So that issue is not going to be on the table. It's not going to be a problem. The new executive order gives HHS a 30-day window to develop pricing targets and outlines a 6-month compliance deadline for pharmaceutical companies. So that's fine. But of course, it's not going to be completely smooth sailing. We can expect there will be resistance. This is, we're going up against the pharmaceutical industry. It's quite likely that the Trump administration is going to face lawsuits from the pharmaceutical industry over this. they may argue that this is overreach. But knowing how well the Trump administration has been strategizing this time round, we can assume that they're aware of this possibility and that they've planned ahead for it. So what do you think they'll do to counteract that?
Understand that this is not really right for America to have to generate 70% of their profits, and we're only 4% of the world population. So we believe there's going to be a desire to come to an understanding, and you see from the stock prices on pharmaceutical companies that others may think this is also okay for that sector. My belief is that if we can't get this to the right place in 30 days, there are tactics we can use. They exist already within government. The president has some opportunities. Congress obviously has options, but the best case scenario would be we all get along and say, hey, listen, this is something that you as an American probably don't think is right either. How do we get Europe to pay a little more so America can pay a little less?
So it seems like they've kind of preemptively already set out some counteroffenses. They have announced that they're going to import drugs from Canada, which will put pressure on the pharmaceutical companies in the US. So that is a good thing. I assume that will give them some leverage. So besides that, I think the best way that they're going to be able to fight the pharmaceutical companies on this is the fact that the government funds pharmaceutical companies massively, huge amounts of money. So technically, the Trump administration could withhold significant sums of money or threaten to withhold significant sums of money from the drug companies. I imagine that actually could be enough to ward off the pharmaceutical companies from filing a lawsuit. But there's also the chance that it could come down to MAGA supporters in the end, because Trump may end up, putting a post out on Truth or something saying, listen, we need to put the pressure on the pharmaceutical companies. They're resisting, blah, blah, blah. He may prompt MAGA supporters, like he has done in the past, to contact their congresspeople and put pressure on them to pass legislation in regards to this. And I'm assuming that the drug companies would really want to avoid that as well. The other thing is that this order addresses pricing, but it doesn't address patenting. And patenting is something that the drug companies will want to avoid like the plague. It's also something that Bill Gates will want to avoid like the plague, because his massive money-making empire that he created in the last decade or however long it's been has been massively dependent on patents. And COVID was completely dependent on patents. He may use it as a kind of leverage point to kind of pressure pharmaceutical companies to comply with this executive order so that they don't have to face something like an executive order in regards to patents. And this week, Bill Gates has been doing yet another damage control media appearance, as he likes to do from time to time.
Let me ask you what you think about the state of the globally.
I mean, look at him. He already looks very uncomfortable. He always looks like he has something to hide.
The global economy, and particularly the U.S. economy. Ken Rogoff, great Harvard economist who I spent some time talking to, says that to him the worst thing about our U.S. current economic policy is it's all self-inflicted and voluntary. That in the past we made mistakes, but they were during a big crisis, a Great Recession, or Nixon facing the problem of the dollar not being able to be converted to gold, or even Smoot-Hawley was after the financial crash of '29, after the Great Recession, trying to figure out what to do. These tariffs we've just imposed on ourselves. How damaging do you think it is?
Well, the big concern I have is we've created a lot of uncertainty.
They frame the whole thing in such a biased way, and Bill Gates supplies a lot of financial support to these media agencies, so it's just a complete journalistic fraud, really. But, I mean, the comments were just appalling. Top comment, Gates is choosing his words very carefully. He wants to be critical of what's going on, but Trump could damage Microsoft or the Gates Foundation badly with a single executive order, so caution is required. So much for free speech in America in 2025. Even the rich and powerful need to avoid criticizing the president. I am personally appalled by the fact that there are still so many people who have no idea how bad Bill Gates is, and will comment online insulting Trump about free speech when Bill Gates was so influential in lockdowns and the greatest imposition upon our rights and our freedoms that we've ever seen across the entire globe. But I bet he's scared, and he should be scared, because there are people in the Trump administration now who know exactly what he is, and he should not get away with what he's done. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that. The executive order is amazing news, but I imagine it's not going to be completely straightforward. There's probably still a little bit of a battle ahead, and it's just good for us to be prepared for that, because even the fact that the media hasn't really been reporting on this means that it will be harder for Trump to put the pressure on the pharmaceutical companies when it comes to it. Whereas the more people who know about this, the more people who are aware of what Trump and RFK Jr. and the administration are trying to do, the easier it'll be to succeed in this. So make sure that you tell everybody that you know about this amazing news. And before I go, I just wanted to say a huge thank you and a huge shout out to Hard Masada and Pete for donating to my Buy Me a Coffee, and for your lovely comments as well. I'm so glad that you're enjoying the videos.